Okay, Shumangla, you're on. Huh? So my view on this is that we are constantly growing. The more we read, the more we imbibe, the more clarity we start getting ultimately.
Right.
So the idea is to take, see, what was he talking about? He was talking about quantum physics.
Yes.
He was talking about how the conception takes place, where the ovum and the
Yeah.
sperm are merging together and creating one cell, and then from that
Yes.
cell,
The protoplasm. Correct.
the
That's right.
protoplasma, the entire
Yeah.
organism develops. Right now, if you
Correct.
look deeper, then how does that one cell know what to do? So it has to come from somewhere, right? Now that is that
Right.
consciousness which is there. You could call it the aura, you could call it the blueprint. Like there is no
Right.
distinction between the cell in my hand and the cell in my stomach, but they are performing two totally different tasks. If we take the cell from both the places, we will see that it is the same thing. It has the same DNA, it has the same everything. But each one is performing a different task. That task, according to me, is coming from the blueprint as to what the cell needs to do. Now, when a baby is there, nothing is formed, right? One cell, that becomes two
Yeah.
cells, that becomes four cells, that becomes eight cells.
Correct.
And then slowly,
Correct.
slowly, the formation starts taking place. So, how is the form taking place? It is taking place on a certain basis, right? Now, today, when you construct a house, what do? What is the first thing that you do?
The foundation. Whatever. Or see the
No.
place.
First,
I
you
don't
need to
know.
conceptualize what your house is
Yeah.
going to be.
Correct.
So you need to
Correct.
think that, okay, this is the kind of house I want, right? Then you
Right.
go to an architect and you ask them to make a drawing, a blueprint of what your house will look like. Then you take that blueprint and give it to a contractor. The contractor then makes the house according to the blueprint. The contractor just doesn't make it out of his own free will.
Right.
You understand? So, like that,
Yeah.
when conception is taking place, there is an inert consciousness which is actually directing the entire game
True.
at the end of the day, right? So, what is he
Right.
saying? That, okay, that conception is there. And then he says over here very clearly, one second, I was reading this line here.
Please make me co-host.
I've made you post.
You made Shalini Bagadia.
Oh, sorry. One second. You have to
I'll
raise
raise
your
my
hand,
hand.
Shivangla.
Yeah, I've raised my hand.
If you don't raise your hand, it becomes difficult. Okay. So he says over here, one second, I was reading it. Yeah. So the shift from energy to form. So now what is energy? It's that consciousness. That consciousness converts into form. So that's what he's saying. So he's not saying something which is off the cuff. It's pretty relevant what he's saying, if you get what I mean. So he's
Yeah.
also
So
talking
when
of that. He's not using the words, right? Every
yeah.
every system has its own words. Now we
Right.
were doing
That's right.
Shiv Tattva and he's talking about Vishuddhi and all that stuff. Vishuddhi for
Yes.
us is power of now. It's being in the now. Now I'll say
Correct.
it's being in the now. He'll call it Vishuddhi.
Yeah. Correct. Correct.
Are you understand? So it's
Yeah.
just a plain words, but if you understand the essence of what it is, then it is ultimately leading you to the same place.
Okay.
But
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you asked the question. Chaliye, Shivangla, you're on.
Yeah.
Which page in the PDF, please?
PDF, I
19.
think, is 19. Someone looked it up and told me.
19.
Okay, thank you.
We have to go one paragraph up, Shivangla, I think.
Okay.
So we are on on chapter 1, page 9 of the book. One more paragraph up.
1 second.
Start your video, Shivangla.
Our physical self is an expression in the form of the energy of our spiritual essence. Our real self is the loving observer of our sensory experiences. In order to fully harmonize with that essential nature, we must be dedicated to expressing its energy and be fully aware of the sacred choice.
So again, this is important here, okay? The sacred choice we are making. At every point, Shivangla, you'll have to just put me on spotlight. I can't do that for myself. Go to participants
Participants and do what?
and click on my name to make spotlight it. Na? Ajay, theek hai, chodo.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Make me spotlight it, yeah. Okay. So over here, what we are looking at, 1 second. So every point in time, we are always given a choice. Like you have a choice right now whether to listen to what we are talking about or leave the meeting and go away. Okay. If you have a glass of water in front of you, you have a choice to have the water or not to have the water. So at every point in time, we always have a choice. Now, what is the state of consciousness with which we make that choice becomes important. I think that's the reason why he's said sacred choice that we are making.
For some, that will mean becoming more like God while temporarily housed in their body. For others, it will be creating God-like expressions of beauty, purpose, and wisdom in form. The human voyage in bodily form is barely a parenthesis in the eternity of our real self. When the parenthesis closes, we are fully re-immersed in spirit, sans the materialized self. We are on that round trip that Lao Tzu refers to in his famous line from the 40th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Return is the motion of the Tao. In the film version of The Shift, I quote from the T.S. Eliot poem, Little Gidding.
So the parenthesis is the brackets, right? So we are all here to experience the experience over here, and ultimately we will go back into that form, into the whole. Shivangla, you'll have to 1 second.
क्या करूं बोलिए?
नहीं, either you'll have to, every time you will have, wait, I'm doing it. Hold on. Make my phone the host.
Aparna
Shivangla, now make me co-host.
Aparna is saying to go slow.
Make me co-host.
1 second.
Hello, Zach. Sorry about this.
I'm unable to make you co-host. I've not got the thing to do it.
1 second. Chalo, okay. Done.
You were talking about the sacred choice.
Yeah, the sacred choice. That we've done it.
Yeah, we finished.
Chalo.
What do you mean by sacred choice, Bhaiya?
Sacred choice. Oops. Oh, I can't do this. 1 second. Okay, so the sacred choice means that every point and time in our life, we always have a choice. We have a choice to do what we want to do. We have a choice not to do it. We have a choice to get up, to sit down. We have a choice to talk. We have a choice not to talk. So every time we have a choice. But what is the state of consciousness with which we are making that choice makes it a sacred choice, because any choice that we make ultimately is a sacred choice, because it's taking us forward, or it's taking us to the place that we are going to be in next. Okay, so it becomes a sacred choice.
Aparna, do you have a question? Okay. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. But before we shed our physical body and complete this return trip, we can begin to understand our original nature by making an effort to be more like what we imagine our source of being to be.
Okay, so 1 second. I need to take care of this here. I can't handle this. 1 second. Okay. So see, now what we say in the Monroe process is that when we are in that expanded state of consciousness, when we are in that state where we are fully aware, our awareness is like that. Now, when we come down to this earth plane, our awareness shrinks and it becomes like this. And then when we transcend again, it expands and becomes the whole thing. Now, while we are in this state of consciousness, our awareness is limited. So our job over here is to experience the experience that we've come to experience, and also to expand our state of consciousness. So he says over here, we can begin to understand our original nature by making an effort to be more like what we imagine our source to be. So the more we become that omnipresent thing, that all-knowing self, the more aware we start becoming.
One way to conceptualize this is to imagine looking through a viewfinder that provides a clear picture of creative source. Through these lenses, we see how it thinks, feels, and behaves. This view of our source gives us a clearer view of our own true self.
So again, we are enhancing our state of consciousness. When we start enhancing our state of consciousness and our awareness, and we start actually observing, taking a witness attitude to understand what is happening around us, automatically we start discerning what is the source, or what is the universal consciousness actually wanting us to do. So again, jacking into the flow.
Understanding the answer to where did I come from involves more than anything else attempting to live from a perspective that's in rapport with our original nature. We must become more like the spiritual nature of our origin. By recognizing the expression of divine consciousness that is our physical being, we in turn make the choice of how to express that divine spirit.
So again, these questions like who am I? Where did I come from? These are all questions that we need to ask ourselves to actually connect with that divinity, to connect with that source. And as we start contemplating, we become clearer and clearer and clearer. So the resonant frequency that we are generating starts to resonate with that divine source. And the clearer we become, the more connected we become to that particular divine source.
How spirit appears to be. So often, our physical world doesn't seem to be very spiritual, in spite of our having originated from spiritual essence. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow expressed this dilemma in his poem, A Psalm of Life.
So now, the physical world doesn't seem to be very physical. What is happening in our world today is that everyone is becoming more and more and more materialistic. So our focus is more on the materialistic things than on the spiritualistic things. That is why it seems that the world is not spiritualistic, but there is something called the chaos theory. What they found, when there is chaos, there is a system, there is a systematic thing happening even when there is chaos. So when you start looking at the bigger picture, even the chaos has some kind of symmetry with the whole. Okay, so in spite of the fact that we are all becoming more materialistic, and we find that the spirituality is not there in the system, underlying everything, the spiritual nature will always come up.
Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Thus thou art, to thus thou returnest, was not spoken of the soul.
So again, what is he saying here? Life is real, life is earnest, life is actually present, okay? The grave is not the aim of the soul. It's not the aim of the ultimate aim of our being here. What it's talking about is we are not our physical body. Our physical body perishes, but that divine essence does not perish. Now, if you look at it from the Vedantic point of view, it is the Atma. The Atma never perishes. It is always coming back.
Raju Mama had his hand up.
It's not there anymore.
The poet speaks of your life and mine as something beyond the physical, which he describes as dust. We are all something other than what we identify with our senses. There's no such thing as a grave for our essential essence, our spirit, but we may disregard and thus lose touch with it. In fact, that's a pretty common situation for all of us during different periods of our lives when we choose to put our physical self in charge.
So again, we are putting the material in charge rather than that spiritual essence.
I love how another of my favorite poets, Rabindranath Tagore, was able to describe in 2 short lines what he thought was our most important spiritual lesson. God loves to see in me not his servant, but himself who serves all.
So again, when we look at Vedanta, I am God. Okay. Aham Brahmasmi. I think that's the word. I get confused with the Hindi stuff. But what is it? God loves to see me, not his servant. So we are not the servant of God. We are a part of God. And a part of something is that something. So we are actually serving ourselves.
The important questions we should be asking ourselves are, am I like God now? Am I getting closer? Am I there yet? If our true essence is spirit and we believe that is where we come from, it seems to me a simple task to reconnect to this authentic part of ourselves. One way to do this is to shift our thoughts and actions to the ways in which we imagine creative energy thinks and acts when its energy materializes in form. We need to be more like spirit appears to be, since this is what we came from. Our divinity is our destiny, regardless of how we've neglected it over the years. God, or the great Tao, which we are all a part of, simply waits patiently for us to be like it is. I imagine that the all-creating spirit, if indeed it had any wants for us, would want us to realize that.
So we are a part of that divinity. Okay. Now that divinity is just waiting for us to realize that we are a part of that divinity. But how will we achieve that? Through becoming aware, through becoming to understand what is happening, to connect with the flow, to become more giving, to become more. Now, when we are talking about the left side, right side of the grid, whenever we are in resistance, we are on the left side of the grid. We have to go into the mode of allowing things to happen for them to manifest, because the divinity is actually has a plan. It is guiding us. But whether we take that guidance or not is a very big question mark, because the divinity has also given us something called free will. Now, how are we using that free will? What he was talking about, the sacred choice. Okay. How are we using that power to make a choice? Makes a total difference in whatever is happening or manifesting in our lives.
An inspiring example of this is found in the Quiet Mind, Sayings of White Eagle. Your personal contribution towards the great plan for the evolution of man is to dwell continually upon the love of God, to look always into the light, and so train yourself to recognize God's goodness working through everyone else.
So again we come to the grid, right? Or we come even to the 4 agreements. When we have the 4 agreements or the 4 S's, all of them will take you here. Okay. The reason, what is he saying? That the great plan for the evolution of man is to dwell continually on the love of God. So when you are operating out of love, you'll be on the right side of the grid. All the 4 S's will be met. You'll be impeccable with your word. You will not take things personally. You will not make assumptions, and you will always do your best. Okay. So all the 3 systems that we are working on to improve ourselves will be implemented, provided you are dwelling in the love of God and you recognize that anything that is happening is the will of God.
I don't believe that God is concerned with whether or not we show our love by building magnificent edifices for worship, by attending services, or through practicing rules laid down by religious organizations. It seems to me that if God were to speak to us, the message would simply be to love each other and offer reverence rather than enmity towards all of life.
So again, all the rituals that are there in all the cultures, they are actually meant to be able to focus our attention and take us into that divine connection. So the rituals are a means to an end. They are not an end. Unfortunately, what has started to happen is that many people have made it the end rather than the means to the end. Once a person has made that connection, that divine connection, then the ritual is not required anymore because you shift into that state of being. Okay. So the most important thing is to be able to make that connection. The ritual is not important, which is what has unfortunately happened with all the religious principles which are there, because the clergy, the priest class, they wanted to keep power with themselves. Okay. That was the reason. And again, what is the message? Message is of love. There are 2 primordial emotions in this world. One is fear and the other is love. Anything that is happening to you, you can boil it down to these 2 particular emotions. And if you're operating from love, you're on the right side of the grid. If you're operating from fear, you're on the left side of the grid.
The journey we've undertaken that has led us to this moment in this body encompasses something I'm calling from.
Form.
We come from something. No, it's from.
Yeah, okay.
I'm calling from. We come from something, somewhere, somehow, and it's a mystery to our little human minds, which tend to think in cause and effect ways. My conclusion is that if we are here now, there must have been a before, and certainly there will be an after.
So nothing happens in isolation. There's always something before that and something after that. Technically speaking, when we are looking at the world that we live in from a linear time and space, okay. Having said that, when we are going into expanded consciousness states, then time and space start to get squeezed. They don't operate in the way that we operate it over here. But since we are operating systems in here, in this place of here and now, then automatically we will look at the past, future, and the present. But since I'm here, there must be a past, and I am definitely going somewhere. So there will be a future.
I do, however, acknowledge the possibility that there's no before, no after, and no timeline. Everything may indeed be complete and all happening at once with no time, no space, no befores, and no afters. But I can't write from that perspective because my little human mind wants to make it all somewhat logical and comprehensible. Therefore, I'll describe how spirit appears to be. 2 distinct journeys. The first is a journey from formless pure spirit into form, and the second is the journey from a subatomic particle to birth.
Okay, so now again, we just talked about this. When we are going into expanded states, there's no time, there's no boundaries, there's no future, there's no past. This is very well depicted in that movie called Interstellar. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but there's a crux, there's a scene which is the crux of that entire movie. And it actually depicts that everything is happening at the same time. Now he's going to describe 2 journeys to us. Let's see what he says.
From formless pure spirit into form, non-being to being. To write about non-being as the place we originate from requires me to imaginatively speculate on what the spiritual world of non-being is. The way I do this is to imagine a divine consciousness who's in the business of manifesting form out of nothingness. Imagining a creation without a creator is a lot like trying to imagine a watch without a watchmaker. Observing creation every day, I cannot help but contemplate that it is from seeds that blossoms come. From blossoms come fruit, and from all small acorns come giant oak trees. Despite my awe and lack of pure understanding, my curiosity about the world of pure spirit continually plays with surmising the before and after all, where from and where to questions.
So again, he is talking about a creator. So we have a story, it's in this book by Bruce Moen. Okay, it's a very nice description. He said that God is omnipresent, knowing. God knows everything. Now, if you know everything, can you get to know something or experience anything? If you know everything, then you can't experience anything. So what God said that, okay, I want to experience something. So it created a smaller part of itself, and just for terms over here, we'll call it curiosity. Now he created curiosity and said, okay, now you go and experience something and come and tell me what you experienced. And then that curiosity is found that there's a lot more to experience than what it can experience. So it again created two more curiosities and so on and so forth. So if you see the soul thing, we come in soul groups also, and we are all part of that soul group. We are all here to learn something, to experience something, and then take that information back into the Godhead. Okay. Now what he's saying is that curiosity, when I know everything, then I'm nothing and everything at the same time. So where was that curiosity created from? It was created from that nothing. Okay. And we will go back into the nothing. So if you're looking at quantum physics also, the quarks, etc., where they are coming from and where they are going, the physicists do not understand. So he's talking about the same thing over here, that where did I come from and where will I go?
Non-being is a deliriously paradoxical state to contemplate. Because I know in my heart that it surely exists, yet I only have my beingness with which to do the contemplating. I have already described my self-limitations concerning understanding the from of my existence. With that in mind, I offer you what I perceive fromness to look like.
Okay, so he's saying that this is a very, very paradoxical state. And with a small state of consciousness or small state of awareness, it becomes very difficult to understand this. Now he's going to attempt to explain it to us.
I think Aparna has a question because she's unmuting bar. Aparna? Okay. See, again, she's here.
Aparna, you have something to say?
No, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Can you log in with your name? Go ahead.
Non-being is a deliriously paradoxical state to contemplate because I know in my heart that it surely exists. Yet I only have my beingness with which to do the contemplating. I've already described my self-limitations concerning understanding the from of my existence. With that in mind, I offer you what I perceive fromness to look like. I conclude that everything is energy. It's all vibration at a variety of frequencies. The faster the vibration, the closer one is to spirit and understanding from where we came from.
So now, what is it saying? That everything is energy and everything is vibrating. Everything around us is vibrating. Now let's take the analog of ice. Okay. Now ice is solidified water. Now if we raise the vibratory frequency of the molecules of water, the ice will become water. Okay, now I can't hold it. Now if I increase the vibrations even further, it will become steam. Now I can't even see it. But is the water existing in the room? It is. So what he's saying here is the faster my frequency of vibration, the closer I am to that ultimate form, because that form is vibrating at a very, very high frequency. To come down to earth, to become solid, the frequency has to slow down.
The pen I hold in my hand as I write these words appears to be solid, yet a glance at it through a powerful microscope shows that it's actually a field of moving particles with mostly empty space between those particles. The vibrational makeup of my pen is energy that is slow enough to appear solid to my eyes, which can only perceive objects that fit within a certain frequency.
Okay, so our eyes can only see a certain range of the electromagnetic spectrum. If the electromagnetic spectrum is like that, what we can actually perceive is only so much. Okay, now having said that, everything is made out of molecules. We did this in our physics class. Molecules are made out of atoms. Atoms are made out of neutrons, electrons, and protons. The electron is circulating around the neutron and proton, and it has a charge. Anything that has a charge will create an electromagnetic field around itself. Okay. Now, if in your room, the room that you're sitting in, if you make one dot in the center of the room with your ball pen, okay, and you make one dot a millionth the size of that in the corner of the room, that is the size of the atom. Okay. Now the atom is 99.9999, add a few 109% space. There is hardly any physicality in an atom. This is what he's talking over here. Now this pencil is also made out of atoms. So in our current conception, it looks solid. But then if we put it under a microscope, we'll find that it is moving, it is vibrating. And if we go deeper and deeper into it, we'll find that it is only space. There is nothing in this. Why? Because it's made out of atoms, and atom is 99% space. So if something is made out of space, what is it? It is space. Now then he says over here that mostly empty space between the particles. Okay. And he talks about energy here. Yeah. So one second. Energy. Yeah. So the vibrational makeup of my pen is energy. So when I'm talking about the magnetic field, a magnetic field is also energy. So everything is encompassed by that field. That field which is there is making everything real for us.
I hear the sounds of mena birds as I write, and I know that my limited exposure to the laws of physics, that sounds are a faster energy than my solid pen is. The light I see streaming in my window is an even faster energy, with tiny particles moving so fast as to appear to be green or blue or yellow, depending on how the rods and cones in my eyes are calibrated to pick up these energetic signals. Beyond the frequencies of light are the vibrational energies of thought.
So again, everything is faster and faster and faster. Sound moves at a particular speed. Light moves faster than that. And our mind moves even faster than that. If you just close your eyes just now and imagine you're in Paris, boom, you're in Paris. Okay.
Yes, thought is an energy system. The highest calibrated frequencies of thought, which are measured through simple kinesiology methods, reveal that faster vibrations approach the ultimate in energy vibration, the dimension of spirit itself. The highest vibrational thoughts are aligned with the source energy of the Tao or God. When experienced as thoughts, these faster vibrations create strength, but slower thoughts create a weaker response in kinesiology tests.
So kinesiology is a process called, it is basically muscle testing. Now in kinesiology, what you do is you raise your hand like this and you ask a person to press it down. And if you hold something in your hand which is making you weak, okay, which is creating stress in your system, your hand will go weak. If something is creating power in your system, it is enhancing your energy, it will become strong. You can also do this using the ring test. You can make a ring like this and do it like this. And you can even test your thoughts with it. Any thought which is empowering, which is putting you on the right side of the grid, will empower you. It will make you strong. Any thought which is depleting will deplete you and make you go weak. So the ring will open up. Okay. So this is what he's saying, that any thought of God which is God is the highest possible frequency, will automatically make you strong. So anything which moves towards godliness, which is good, will automatically make you strong. Anything which is taking you away from that frequency of vibration or the God vibration will make you weak.
The way this works is when we focus mental energy on a thought aligned with source and raise an arm to shoulder height as a test of our strength, it's difficult for anyone to lower it. When we focus our mental energy on slower frequency thoughts, however, our upraised arm is easily pushed down by another person. When it comes to kinesiology, every negative emotion makes the physical body weaker. These studies are graphic examples of the world of non-being, and they're also opportunities to explore the frequencies that harmonize with the vibrations of source energy.
Okay, so again, we've already talked about this. Anything that is taking you away from source, that is the faster thoughts, the good thoughts, will automatically make you weak. We did this experiment. When did we do it? I think we did it in the Vastu energy field talk that I gave. We made you write things on a piece of paper and then see how your body was moving. I think, Indra Bhabi, are you here?
She was here.
Can you unmute yourself? Is she here?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Indra Bhabi, you remember that experiment we had done? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember that experiment?
Yeah, I remember.
Can you share what happened?
Mhm.
What happened? You muted yourself.
No. Talking about the one with a piece of paper.
Yeah, the one with the piece of paper where you nearly fell off.
Yeah, we were all attending a session at Niket's house. And suddenly he wrote things on pieces of paper and we didn't know what it was. And we were standing around the room facing with the back towards the center. And he gave us a piece of paper in our hand, each one of us. And I don't know what he gave in my hand, but it jerked me so bad that I nearly fell. And I threw that paper away. I don't know what it was. And then when Niket opened the chit, it was written hate.
Yeah, so again, I shared this experiment with you all. I just wanted to hear it from her thing. So what happened was we were doing this experiment and on that piece of paper, I was writing hate. In the first paper, I was writing hate and thinking hate. The second paper, I was writing hate and I was thinking, why am I writing hate? In the third paper, I was writing hate, but I was thinking love. And there were, I think, 10 people in that. So the 8 people got the paper where I had written hate, but I was thinking love. The first paper in which I was thinking love and had written hate was the one that she had got. And when she got it in her hand, she actually got thrown off the wall because the resonance that was there in that paper was taking her away from source. So it actually weakened her and literally threw her out of the window. So this is what this is talking about over here.
The field from which all things originate and to which all things return has a feel to it. Based on the research and ruminations of some of the most revered beings who have walked this earth, creation itself isn't an act of violence, it's a pleasurable, joyful act. There doesn't appear to be any fear, shame, blame, anger, humiliation, anxiety, or hatred associated with the workings of the great Tao that seems to be doing nothing and yet leaving nothing undone.
So again over here. So which all things return has a feel to it. It has a tasir. It has a feeling. So when we start connecting with stuff, we can get the feel of it. And this is what we are using in the one breath technique. Or when we are going into that expanded states of consciousness of F10, F12, etc. When we are asking that question, we get a feel whether this is the right thing to do or not. Most businessmen will call it a gut feel, that I followed my gut. Okay. So now over here, what he's saying, that feeling is very, very important. And growth, or in consciousness, growth, when we are going into these expanded states, then the negative and depleting feelings of fear, shame, blame, anger, humility, anxiety, etc. do not exist over there. So we always tell people, when you are going into these expanded states, Don't go into these states with fear, because that fear is what is your creation. Over there, they are all compassionate. They are all out to help you to achieve your end. So when we are going into these states, we have to allow them to help us. So creation itself is not an act of violence. It is a pleasurable, joyful act. It is a process of joy. It is a process of love. It is a process of happiness. Okay. And the more we connect to that feeling of joy, happiness, the more evolved we will become. So the more we can be on the right side of the grid, the more evolved we will automatically become. The more we are on the left side of the grid, the more depleted and the devolved we will become.
Remember that the body we live in 24/7 wasn't created by a human being. It's a creation of God. So it makes perfect sense to me that if our body, God's creation, is filled with negative thoughts, it would be weak. Simply expressing a falsehood weakens a strong person's arm. Expressing the truth always creates a strong physical response because truth is of God. How could creation or the creator create from an untruthful perspective? There's abundant literature based on rigorous research in kinesiology that non-being, the place that we came from, is aligned with energy and that is strongest when expressing truth.
So again, impeccability of my word. What does that imply? We just read it in 4 agreements. So be impeccable with your word. So what is it's saying? That be truthful to your word. Say the truth. Mean what you say. Now, if I'm saying something and I'm actually meaning something else, then it becomes falsehood. If I say something and then I don't act on it, again it becomes falsehood. So the more impeccable with our word we can become, and word doesn't mean just speaking it. It means even thinking it. So even if I have a thought which is not impeccable, it is going to weaken me. So it says here very clearly, God's creation is filled with negative thoughts, it would be weak. Simply expressing a falsehood weakens a strong person's arm. So as soon as you're saying something false, you immediately go into the left side of the grid and you become weak. So, and God's truth, God will never say a lie, okay? The God will always say what is the truth, what is your state of being. It is not going to muddle around with it. Yes, someone saying something?
No. The highest, fastest vibrating thought that will always keep us strong is the energy of love. My conclusion is that non-being and love are synonymous. Mysticism and virtually all religions state that the supreme being is love and the only pure truth is love.
So now again, that supreme consciousness is all compassionate. It's all loving. It wants the best for you. Why? Because you are a part of it. Okay. Why will something which is a part of something want to hurt that thing? You will always want to care for it. You'll always want to look after it. So automatically the supreme feeling is always love.
Some religions trivialize the supreme being by inventing a god in the image and likeness of humans. Theirs is a deity of endless nitpicking rules, who is easily offended, always being sinned against, and prone to anger, revenge, and punishment. The love I'm speaking of personifies non-being, accessed and incorporated within us from where we originated. It has no rules, doesn't wish to control, never punishes, and doesn't know how to descend into anti-love expressions.
Okay. So now what he's saying, that the deities, okay, will tell you do this, do that, and they get angry, etc. Now, when you look at the Hindu religion, we have said that we got 33 crore Devi Devta. Okay. Now, in my view, each of the Devi Devtas has a certain frequency of vibration, and they are attempting to connect us to that particular frequency of vibration. As I said before, the religious rituals were a way to the end, not a means to the end. They were not the end. Ultimately, you had to transcend the deities also. There's a story about Ramakrishna Paramhans. He was a self-realized person and he had a guru. Now, what happened was that he used to associate with Kaliji. And he used to always think of Kaliji as the mother and he is separate. So he was still in duality. He was not in that oneness. He was not in that concept of oneness. So then his guru came to him and told him that if you really want to transcend into the next level, you have to cut off the head of Kaliji. Until then, you will not be able to transcend. Why? Because there's a distinction which is being created. So he actually had to cut off Kaliji's head to move into the next next state of consciousness. So he says over here, the love I'm speaking of personifies non-being, assessed and incorporate within us from the where we are. It has no rules, doesn't wish to control, and never punishes. So when we are going into that all compassionate being, that being, anyone who's all compassionate will always give you freedom. They are not going to want to control you, and they are not out to punish you. They're always out to support you in achieving whatever you want to achieve. The universal consciousness is all pervading and it is all supportive. It will listen to you what you want. That is why it becomes so important for us to think what we are thinking and to visualize things in a proper and a systematic way. Most of the time we have two thoughts. I want to live well. I want to live like a king, but I don't want to work. Now, I don't want to work, I live like a king. Now, both things are two contradictory things. What is it that you actually want? You have to throw it out in the universe for it to respond for you. Okay. So again, that expanded state is totally compassionate.
The entire universe, as I see it, is made of love, and each of us appears to be an individualized expression of the one being of love. Simplified, God is love. I like Ralph Waldo Emerson's description of love as a synonym for God. What an incredibly magnificent concept this idea of non-being is existing as a state of pure, indescribable bliss, and one that is necessary for the act of creation to take place.
So when we are in bliss, okay, today, when are you the most creative? When is it the time that you learn the most? When you are a child, the child is always in bliss. It doesn't know, it's always in the moment. It's always in the now. It's always enjoying. It's always curious. It's always in a aha moment. Okay, it's always there. And the second time that happens is in puberty, when you are in love with someone, that is the time everything is beautiful. Everything is blissful. Your efficiency levels rise the maximum at that point in time. Anything is possible for you to do. Okay. Now, where will creation takes place? Where you feel that anything is possible. Whatever you think can manifest. That is where creation takes place. So when creativity is there, you are in a state of bliss.
Think about it. We came from love, therefore we must be love in some way, since we must be like what we came from. Jesus put it this way: he who does not love does not know God, for God is love. Pretty basic and very straightforward. Non-being is love. Since we came from non-being, we must be love.
So again, as we go into these higher states of consciousness, we start evolving towards that ultimate goal that we have. We become more compassionate. We become less irritable. There's a story I keep repeating that Robert Holbrook, the innovative director of the Monroe Institution, when he was here, he told us the story that he went to a village in South America where everyone in the village was operating in F12 in an expanded state of consciousness, okay, or expanded awareness. And they had no doors over there. There was no crime. The community looked after each other. They were always looking after each other. Everything was moving very, very peacefully. Why? Because you're connected with that higher state of consciousness.
But we somehow manage to move away from our original nature. Every thought of non-love is a movement away from where we came from. Every act of judgment, anger, shame, fear, anxiety, and violence is a movement towards not loving and not knowing God. Even an anti-love thought is a movement away from our original nature.
So anything that puts you on the left side of the grid, being judgmental, being a victim, also puts you on the left side of the grid. When we are doing a power play, when we are doing a control drama, wanting to absorb energy from someone, again we are putting ourselves in the left side of the grid. And every time we go on the left side of the grid, we are moving away from that essence, that divine essence where we are actually striving to get to.
What was it like to be in that state of pure love awaiting our transition into beingness? What were we doing? Once we acquire form, these questions are almost impossible to contemplate. However, here is my conceptualization of what non-beingness feels like before we journey into this world of form and boundaries.
So again, we say we were that consciousness, we were that infinite consciousness which was like that. And then we came here, we compressed our consciousness to experience this experience over here. And naturally, with this state of consciousness, it's very difficult to contemplate what that state of consciousness is.
Nothing is. The one thing we can certainly agree on is that we had nothing. There was nothing to own, nothing to do, nothing to fight, nothing to worry about. We were nothing in physical terms.
So when we were in that divine state of consciousness, nothing was there. When we are born, we have nothing, right? And we are nothing. And then slowly we start acquiring all these things. We start acquiring the belief systems. We start connecting with material objects, etc., etc.
This idea of nothing is really difficult for us. We've entered a world where something has replaced nothing, where form replaced non-form. In our material world, owning nothing and doing nothing are generally interpreted as signs of failure. Yet our true essence is most comfortable with nothing.
So again, if you are doing, then the ego is operating. If things are happening, then the ego is not operating. And that true essence does nothing, but everything happens. Okay. So we need to move into that state of consciousness where we drop the doing.
It seems to me that the most efficient way to know and experience where we came from is to make every effort to reconnect to nothing by creating the experience of no attachments, no things, and no thoughts.
So now, the point here is to operate in the moment, to operate in spontaneity, okay? To be attached to nothing, because whenever you are attached to something, that creates the duality. If you accept everything, that whatever is happening, then there is no duality. You are in the flow. Okay. So when we are attached to things, when we are attached to people, that is when the problems start coming up. When we start having expectations, and that is when the duality starts to come, the give and take, the transactions start to happen. But if I'm non-attached, I'm allowing whatever is happening to happen. I do my best. Again, the four agreements. I'll always do my best. I will always be impeccable with my word. I will not take things personally, and I will not make assumptions. Okay. When I do things like that from that state of consciousness, then attachment will automatically drop.
We do this by simply being rather than doing and accumulating. As Herman Melville is believed to have said, God's one and only voice is silence, and this is an invitation to experience our original world of nothing. All of creation emerges from the silent void, as does every sound. Every bit of light comes from nothingness. Every thought emerges from non-thought.
Okay, so when we have a thought, where did that thought come from? So previously when we used to do the Vastu program, I used to draw a line on the board. And I used to ask the question that, does this line have energy or not? So many people used to say many things. Then I used to say that, okay, how did the line come into existence? First I had to think of making the line. Then I had to go and get a pen. I had to then turn around. My legs were told to turn around. I had to go and pick up the pen, go turn around, go to the board, and then make the line. Now, any action that I took for that line to come into existence was in that line. Now, even if one of those actions did not take place, the line would not be there in existence. Okay. So the entire energy spent from the thought of drawing the line till the line came into existence was in the line. Now, when I did the biogeometry program, they said that before the line comes into existence, there has to be an energy field in front of the line. Okay. And this we talked about again in the energy field program that I gave a talk about, and they called it the BG3 energy. And it is actually possible to test for that energy. Before any line, the BG3 energy has to be there. And a surprising part is that wherever you start drawing the line, it has ultraviolet energy. And wherever the line ends, it has infrared energy. This is the basis of all our symbols having energy, because a symbol is also basically lines, and the lines contain energy. So where did that thought come from? It came from below the line. Okay. It came from a deeper state of consciousness. And what is the deeper state of consciousness? Nothingness. So everything that is manifesting has ultimately come from that nothingness.
There's a Zen proverb that reminds us that it's the silence between the notes that makes the music. Without silence to interrupt the sounds, there can be no music. It would only be one long, continuous tone. But of course, even the long tone originated in the void.
So again, when we are even going into a state of no thought, we can't immediately go into a state of no thought. It's the gap between the thoughts which takes us into that state. So what makes the music alive is the gap between the notes.
Nothingness is equivalent to the expression of zero, mathematically. It can't be divided, it has no empirical value, and if we multiply anything by it, we get a sum of nothing. Yet, without the indivisible zero, mathematics itself would be impossible. Before we came into this material world, our essence was nothing. We had no things encumbering us, no rules, no duties, no money, no parents, no hunger, no fear, nothing at all.
So again, we came from Shunya, we'll go back into Shunya.
Bhaiya, it's already 3:50.
Oh, okay. So we can stop now.
Bhaiya, there is one more little, it is out of this book. This, there is today there is one saying came, be careful not to wear spiritualism as a badge to decorate your ego.
Correct.
How, like, what is the, can you give us some example?
So when you see, there is something called spiritualistic ego. So when a person starts becoming very spiritual and starts getting a big following, etc., usme bhi ego aa jata. So you have to be very consciously
how do you
aware of
decorate
this. They are decorating it as a badge. Now let us say there are 64 people in this session over here. Okay.
Okay.
Now I can wear it as a badge that, I gave a talk and 64 people came and listened. So now that becomes a badge. So what we are doing is a spiritualistic endeavor, right? But now I can wear it as a badge also.
Okay.
So if we start wearing it as a badge and start fanning our ego with it, then that automatically creates a problem for us, because then that will bring you down again. So that
but
means
like
you are not.
Have an authority. You have an authority, but it is not with the other people. Like how it is for the people who I think it is like people like normal who are following it up. It is for them, not for the.
So now you can say that I'm now, like for example, attending a Gita class may have become a fashion. Okay. So now you wear it as a badge that I am attending a Gita class.
Okay. All right.
So now it becomes a badge.
Right.
So you're doing something spiritual, but you're using it as a badge.
Okay.
So are you doing it for the act of actually becoming more spiritual? Or are you doing it just to tell people in society that, I'm attending a class?
Okay. Understood.
That's the basic idea. Yes, Renuji?
Okay, thank you.
Renuji, please unmute.
Yeah. Bhaiya, you mentioned about the line. You know, when you draw a line, the
Yes.
beginning has energy, the end. Now, sometimes one tends to scribble, write, you know, things like that. You mean to say all that also would be creating negative energy?
No. Again, I said the line has energy. I did not say it has negative or positive energy. Now, what is the thought or consciousness with which you are drawing the line is in the line. For example, what was I doing in that slip of paper with Indra Bhabhi just said that she was thrown off the wall? What was I doing? What is hate? Okay, it's one straight line, another straight line, one horizontal line, one slightly diagonal line, another slightly diagonal line, one horizontal line, one straight line, one horizontal line, one straight line, three horizontal lines. That is the word hate, right?
Right.
You get that?
Right.
Now,
understood.
That word implies something. Now, the word implies something because it has an implication that we have, the value that we have put into that word as hate. Okay. Now, what am I thinking when I'm writing that word will also be in that word.
Okay.
So when we wrote those 10 slips of paper, the word in them was the same. But what was I thinking when I was writing the word also is in the word, and it affected the people. The rest of the people, they actually stabilized because I was writing hate, but I was feeling and thinking love. Are you?
Yeah. You know, I just was wondering, that means one should be very careful of what one writes also, because
No. Take it one step.
Angry,
Take it
if you're
one
angry and you write something, that
exactly.
means
So take it one step ahead. What are you thinking when you're writing is very important.
Yeah, supposing you're angry and you write it and then you tear it up, that's okay, no?
Yeah, of course.
Then you have not created it.
Yeah, so fire is the ultimate purifier, right? So you write it, if you burn it, that's why the system of burning, that's why the system of putting all our stuff out in the sun. The sun represents fire, right? It burns everything out. So जो अपने पहले जो दिवाली क्लीनिंग में सब चीज घर का सब चीज निकाल के धूप में देते थे, that was the reason that we are cleansing everything.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone, anything? Acha, there's some chat. Okay, can't see you. That we'll have to deal with. Anyway, anything else? Otherwise, we'll meet for meditation. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sri Mangla.
Thank you, Shimanga. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Ram Ram.